Hello, my name is James, and welcome to Mirror Domains. Today we're talking about Gotham, Episode 9, The Executioner. And this is a dramatic episode, if I've ever seen one. It starts off with Gordon and Bullock talking about the possibility of Barnes being infected by this blood, and then we see Barnes killing these three hooligans, and you're like, okay, yep, he's fully infected with this blood. And then we get the side story of this episode in which Ivy is seducing these older men for their riches, and she drugs this man with some perfume that she's made from plants, and she steals some jewels from him, and he vows to find her and get the jewels back. And then Penguin and Enigma talk about Isabella and, how she died. Edward gets a call to go into the GCPD and talk about, basically to identify Isabella's dead body, which is a damn shame. I was really hoping that she survived, but alas, I'm guessing that she's dead. Well, we saw her body. Ivy comes to Selina and asks her for some help. Gordon and Bullock talk about the prints at the crime scene where, Barnes had shoved that guy through the bathroom wall. And it's just them basically setting up that, they're going to have to go after Barnes. And Gordon is asking Bullock for some help. And then this episode really kicks off, because that was just the setup before the credits, before the first commercial break. And my notes from there on are this episode did a very good job of telling its segments, because I have 3 things here and 3 things there between commercial breaks. And this next part opens up with Barnes and Jim driving to a crime scene in which Barnes feels that, this person can be framed for the murder. And, Jim has this very hesitant feeling about Barnes because he feels that maybe Barnes is taking him away to off him. And there's this very tense car scene where they're driving, and it's like a cat and mouse game. It was very tense. And Barnes is basically forgetting which address he's going to, and you're like, uh-oh, you're in trouble, Jim. Kat and Bruce talk with Ivy, and, this was interesting. Bruce comes to help out Kat with Ivy's situation, and Ivy's obviously, basically Selina's mad that Ivy didn't tell her that she had aged and didn't come to help for her to help. And the highlight of that scene was when Bruce says, "Oh yeah, Ivy, you look good." And Kat and Ivy both look over at Bruce kind of like, huh? Because that Kat and Bruce are, they're trying things out. That's just so, I like the look on their face. I'll have to watch that again. Barnes and Gordon break in on the suspect, Sugar, who is supposed to be, the patsy for the murder of Simon. But all of a sudden, Barnes kills Sugar. And you're like, whoa, so quickly? And then he draws his shotgun on Gordon, and then we went to commercial, and I was like, wow, that was unsuspectingly cool in a way. But anyway, Ivy and Kat, Bruce flee a bunch of, 2 of these thugs that are coming after this jewel that Ivy stole from the rich guy in the beginning. And Bruce basically haggles with Ivy, saying, okay, well, if I buy this jewel off of you and we give it back to the old man, then these guys won't be hunting us anymore. Okay, I like that. Penguin and Enigma talk about Isabella's death. Now, After after Enigma finds out that she's dead, he's just basically sulking a lot, and he's just like, well, I don't know what to do. And Penguin tries to cheer him up by saying, okay, well, why don't you go outside and, try to do something and try to get back into your life, because that's how you heal, that's how you move on. And then Enigma's like, okay, well, I'll go pay my respects to the crime scene. And then you're like, okay, well, he's eventually going to start piecing some parts of the puzzle together. And that pays off in this episode. Jim and Barnes talk about the consequences of what Barnes is doing. It's kind of like a face-off, and they're just saying, okay, well, I was once the good guy, and now I'm the bad guy, and where Jim shot, what was that guy's name? Gallivan. He shot Gallivan in cold blood, and, Jim was like saying, well, you gotta live with that now. Whatever. Yeah, that was an interesting scene. Enigma goes to investigate the crime scene of where Isabella died. And that was interesting because you get to see some of his detective skills. He talks to some witnesses and he finds out that there was some screaming and there's no skid marks on the train tracks or anything. So he's very suspicious as to what happened. Bruce and Kat try to give the necklace back to the old guy, but the old guy has been shot through the eye with an arrow, the same kind of arrows that the thugs were using on them earlier. So that set up some intrigue. Barnes corners Jim in the facility. All right, so this is the big face-off of this episode, because it was building towards Gordon and Barnes having this big face-off. And I thought originally that they were going to play it that Barnes was doing this because he wanted to try to have like a noble death. And, he would just have Jim shoot him and Barnes would be able to have an honorable, clean death that meant something. But no, it basically is Barnes going full evil. And it ends with Barnes getting shot and being taken away to Arkham. But it was an intense scene because at one moment you thought maybe Barnes could come out of it, but no. Basically, Bullock shows up with the cavalry and hauls him away. They have the shootout. Barnes gets hit in the shoulder, and that's that storyline. Bruce gets taken. Okay, Bruce takes Ivy and Kat in at the end, and they want to try to investigate why this little gem was so expensive or so sought after, and they find out that it's not really a gem, it's a key. It's a key to something. So this storyline is leading towards something where they have to unlock something or find out something. And while that's happening, in another scene, those guys that were shooting at them earlier find in this house a safe hidden behind the bricks where they see a clipping of who shot Thomas and Martha Wayne. And that's an interesting take. I wasn't expecting that. So you can see that they're building towards something. I'm not sure just what yet, because these guys look weird. Penguin and Enigma talk about Isabella, and okay, this is a big scene because you thought that Enigma was going to piece it together that Penguin had killed Isabella, but in fact, Enigma thinks that Butch killed Isabella. So you got to think, though, maybe Ed is just playing Penguin and he just wants to see his reaction to it. So I'm not sold on it just yet, but it's obviously building towards Edward and Penguin building towards a face-off with Butch and Tabitha. And then it ends with Gordon and Bullock talking about, what happened to the captain and who could possibly take over. Gordon talks with Lee. That was an interesting scene, how she kind of covered up for him. He thanks her, and you can see that they're starting to mend some broken bridges there, and I liked seeing that. So, as far as the episode overall went, it was kind of like a necessary episode to close off some storylines. It wasn't as great as the last episode, but it was still good. I would give this episode a 7 out of 10. Still worth watching. It was still definitely worth watching because it actually moves the storyline, the whole series along. So that's it. My thoughts on Gotham episode 9, The Executioner. If you've liked what you've seen, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe.